So today I will be reading this to you guys, and this is called The Consequences Due Record Book. And it's written by Barbara L. Sebastian. So during the last 2 or 3 decades, our society has become more and more punitive towards people who break the rules. Punitive means like more, harsh rules. It's sort of like think about the three strikes law, where let's say you have two felonies and then I don't know if they changed this or not, but you commit another felony, a nonviolent crime, then you go to jail for 25 years to life. So that's what punitive means. It's like harder, harsher, and harsher punishments. At the same time, we have inadvertently become more lax in teaching our children that there are consequences for their behavior. So, in our fast-paced, rapid society, a lot of times we're too busy. We're too busy to even, teach our children right from wrong and show them the consequences of their actions. So if we're becoming more and more punitive, more and more harsh in our punishments, but at the same time not teaching that there are consequences, then that makes for another storm. And anyway, so as our communities become increasingly unlawful and violent, so do our children. That should not be a wonder. Like, oh dang, why are my kids so bad? Or why? And children aren't bad. Actually, they all children are good. They make not smart decisions, but we need to get out of that frame of mind of calling kids good and bad. Really, children are just children. Um, so the old belief that power gained through the use of violence teaches others who's the boss has gained a strong foothold in many areas. This belief has been fostered by the entertainment industry with its persuasive message that individuals resolve their displeasure or disappointment in life through the use of extremely violent methods. This belief is based on a number of myths. Myth number one: until the child knows who's in charge, he will do as he pleases. That is a big myth because children are going to do ultimately what they please anyway, regardless of who's in charge and whether they respect you or not. Fact: a child will always do as he pleases unless he is taught to obey rules or suffer the consequences for being uncooperative. Unfortunately, it is difficult for any child to believe he must mind when he is faced with daily examples of adults doing exactly as they please, especially when they have something to gain. The implied attitude is, my behavior may be illegal or immoral, but who cares as long as I profit from it? Yeah, so you guys think your kid's not watching you hustle, do this, do that. And when I had my first child, when I became pregnant, that's when I really stopped doing a whole bunch. And I wanted to make sure I modeled the best type of behavior for him as possible. But other things like, kids, they watch you get over. And, if they see you do that, then you get surprised when they become um a teenager and they're, trying to get over. So, myth number two: if your child is disobedient, it must be because the punishment wasn't severe enough to convince him to give up his evil ways. Wow. Yeah. This goes directly to the fact of like, y'all, let me not say y'all, we beat and yell at our kids, and after we do it 10 times, you would think that we would realize that yelling at them and beating on them isn't going to make them magically listen all of a sudden. No, it's not. We have enhanced prison sentences. We have developed the three strikes concept in sentencing, and we continue to lower the age and we continue to lower the age, children will be handled as adults in our criminal justice system. For what purpose? The prison industry in California is growing by leaps and bounds. Interviews of incarcerated adults and children reveal that seldom did they consider negative consequences to themselves before acting. Even if they did, they had the mistaken belief that nothing would happen unless they were caught, even if it was no big deal and would be worth it. California is a prison state. We have more prisons than any other state, I believe. And it's, quote unquote democratic state. Really, it's a prison state. And everything, all the systems in place are geared, for our people to go to prison and to be slaves there. Myth number 3, some individuals will be lawless no matter what. They were born that way. No. Fact, recent research indicates that each individual is born with a particular personality type, but that his life experiences mold the way he responds. When a child demonstrates out of control or socially unacceptable behavior, his parents often respond with, I did everything I could, but he was so headstrong. He was determined to do whatever he wanted. Nothing I tried worked. As a parent educator, it has become increasingly apparent to me over the last 30 years that children only do what they are allowed to do. Many parents fail to civilize their children because they're either too tired, too busy, too overwhelmed, or too lazy to expend the time it takes to teach children all the essential social behaviors and the skills they need to be self-reliant and independent. Yeah, we all know this. Everybody else and their mama raising our kids. The TV, phones, internet. And our kids haven't been being held accountable or being taught, the consequences of their actions. Parenting is a 24/7 job. Yes, there are a lot of families with single parents or both parents who work outside the home. So neighbors, relatives, and professional caregivers are relegated to the task teaching all the fundamental behaviors that are essential if the child is to be successful be a successful self-sufficient adult. Too often, even when substitute caregivers give excellent care, the parents undo everything by not reinforcing the lessons at home. Oh, this is so true. So like a babysitter or somebody can teach your child how to do, one thing, but then if you're not consistent and you don't, show the child that they're supposed to do that with you also, then they get mixed signals. Oh, well, I don't have to do this with my mom. I don't have to do this with, and all these different parenting styles have emerged. Oh, this is my kid. You don't tell my kid this, you don't tell my kid that. There's been a breakdown in the schools from that. And teachers, oftentimes aren't supported. Teachers should be, oh my gosh, I can go on and on about how teachers need support of the parents. But I want to get through reading this. To be an effective, positive parent, 3 basic steps must be followed. Give a clear and direct message to your child about what they are to do. Body language, tone of voice, and words must be congruent. They must match. So don't be like if you're standing at the stove and you yell at your child, oh, such and such, go do this, go do that. 9 times out of 10, they're not going to go do it because they know you don't really mean business. Your attention is on the stove, not on, seeing if they follow through what you asked them to do. Follow through and make sure the child is doing what was required. If not, get the child started doing whatever she was instructed to do. Use negative and positive consequences to ensure cooperation. Consequences may be neutral or logical. Make sure that the same or similar behavior is required on a consistent basis. The following technique was developed after I heard parents say over and over again, I have good intentions, but all I do is threaten. Why can't my child just mind? Children don't cooperate because they decide not to. Children learn very early that adults often do not say what they mean or mean what they say. They interpret what adults mean by the choice of words used and whether or not their body language and tone of voice reinforce or contradict the verbal message. So true. So it's like a lot of times for me, my kid catch me laughing. Of course, obviously, they're not going to take me serious. And we got so many comedians out there parenting it. You got to laugh, though. Um, Example, a small spiral. Oh, the technique is simple, but to be effective, it must be applied consistently over time, especially for a tenacious, strong willed child determined to do what he wants in spite of the cost. Once started, parents must persist in using the book, or the child's behavior will become even more uncontrollable, as you will have to reinforce the child's belief that you never mean what you say. Equipment needed: a small spiral notebook labeled consequences due, and a pen. Number each page. Children have been known to rip out a page or two. If a page turns up missing, you can assess additional consequences as a penalty. Consistent and obvious documentation of the child's choices is important. Be sure to document positive behavior, even if you feel that it might be manipulative. Be sure you take it with you when you are away from home. Let the child know he has options by asking her whether or not she is choosing to be disobedient. If the child chooses to be uncooperative either by doing nothing or by an affirmative answer, document specifically what he chose to do and the date and time. This is especially important if a child is a debater. If the child chooses to cooperate, no matter how reluctantly, be sure to thank her. Remember, snorting, stomping, swearing, and other rude, disrespectful acts are manipulative behaviors designed to get the parent to back down. So, like, if you ask your child to do something and they smack their teeth or they stump their feet and walk away, yes, that is a rude behavior. But what she's saying is thank them anyway and don't let that suck you in to the argument or, focusing on the rude behavior. Focus instead on the fact that the child is just doing it, because ultimately what you want to do is you want to inspire change in your child, and what they're trying to do is manipulate you to focus on them smacking their teeth or stomping their feet or whatnot. The very next instant, which may be merely minutes later, the child asks for something. The parent says, "Let's see if you have any consequences due." Check your record book. If a consequence is due, deny the request by telling the child, "I don't do favors for kids who don't cooperate," and mark the debt paid by crossing it out. Be sure the child is present and knows a debt has been canceled. Caution: most children catch on quickly and will try to get you to tell them in advance what the consequence will be so they can make a choice they can live with. Some may wait and ask for a minor privilege so you will cancel their debt. During one of my classes, the mother offered this clever solution she used when she became aware her son was being manipulative. She simply ignored the opportunity to impose a consequence. When her son reminded her that a consequence was due, she replied, "Since you get to choose when and what behavior gets you in the book, I get to choose when and what consequence gets you out." So that's so funny. Like, okay, so basically, you tell your kid to, go clean up their room and they're not doing it. So you ask them, "Are you choosing not to cooperate?" And they might say, "Yeah, I'm choosing not to cooperate." So you write their name, date, and time down and what it was. Um, or if they just, if they ignore you and just don't do it, then you write it down. So let's say they ask you for a snack. That could be what you decide will be the consequence due, that they don't get a snack. And you go and you say, "All right, you pay for this consequence when you didn't want to go clean your room." But what it's saying is they might really not want the snack. What they might really want to do is go outside. And so they'll ask for a snack so you can cross off the consequences due, and then 10 minutes later ask can they go outside. So that's funny. Keep your record of debts and payments intact. Do not remove any of the pages. It will give you a clear idea of the challenges your children present to you and whether or not you are responding in predictable ways when you impose consequences. Remember, when you become predictable, children have the opportunity to choose consequences rather than cooperation. Having a record encourages you and the child as you're able to see progress you have made. This technique teaches one of life's most important lessons. When I'm uncooperative, no one cooperates with me. Yeah, it baffles me a lot of times how I see, kids treating their parents, all kind of different ways. And then the parent turns around and just gives them whatever they want out of convenience or out of, I'm not sure, parents and lack of parenting skills. Also, when you focus on be sure to use the technique on all children in the home, not just one you perceive to be the most trying. Children have an innate sense of fairness. If they think they're being picked on or being singled out by the parent, the result could be even more rebellious behavior. Also, when you focus on a single child's behavior, you may fail to notice that a quieter, less in your face child is engaging in similar uncooperative behavior. She has learned to be less obvious in her defiance, and while your attention is elsewhere, does as she pleases. This unfortunately sets up major conflict between siblings. This technique eliminates the conflict by forcing parents to be more observant. The whole family benefits. Parents commit to using this technique as long as the child remains in your home. Remember, consistency is important as it takes at least 2,000 times in context for a child to learn new behavior. Wow. And there are 365 days in a year. So that's like 7 years. Wow. Don't get complacent. Oh, wait. Once the child has grasped the idea, the parent only has to mention consequences or the child to see the book in your hand, and the child will usually choose cooperation, a choice the child can live with. Since the child will no longer know in advance what the consequence will be without any additional effort on their part. Your strong-willed child may continue to test you for months or even years. The child is just waiting to see how long it takes for you to give up on your new behavior and revert to your old ways. If your kids got you figured out and they run circles around you and you're trying to inspire change in your household, yeah, they might really try to wear you down so that you give up this new parenting style. Remember to acknowledge positive cooperative behavior. Recording it will ensure that you don't take it for granted. Cooperation should be rewarded by positive consequences. A verbal or handwritten acknowledgement of how their behavior was helpful may even maybe even an occasional special privilege or treat will ensure harmony. Dang it. I'm working, so. Children blossom when their positive behavior becomes the focus. As negative behavior diminishes, you will find yourself enjoying that spirited, challenging individual who shares your home. Yes, positive acknowledgement is something that I definitely have to work on as a parent, because I do really enjoy when my children listen and cooperate, and that is a practice that I am going to increase. Just constantly, you know, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for this, thank you for that. And we've gotten, as a society, gotten away from, you know, politeness and manners, and all that starts in the home. So we need to get back to it. I hope you guys understood what this. Oh, I'll share with you a consequence. Also, all three of my little ones, they had consequences due. Maybe one of them, you know, didn't want to listen, didn't pick up something. So because all three of them had consequences due, at one time, you know, we were sitting down to watch a movie, and all of them wanted to pick the movie. But because all of them had consequences due, I told them, nope, mommy's going to pick the movie, and they paid their debt that time. So you can think of different ways to give your children consequences. And this also is a good way to get away from harsh punishment, because a lot of times we don't want to take this away from a child, or we don't want to, you know, we don't like making them, we don't like to see them sad or mad. And so with this, the consequence due book directly ties their consequence to their action. It's not our anger that picks the consequence. It's you know, it could be a number of things. They might want to pick out food at the grocery store. You can use that as a consequence. No, you didn't, you know, do the dishes last night. Your consequence for that is you can't pick out what you want from the grocery store. Or you know, it could be a number of different things to show them that when they don't want to cooperate, you know, something else isn't going to work out for them. If that makes sense. All right. Bye.